So, I don't want this to be too formal, and I didn't realize I was going to be able to see myself. I've already started the recording because what better interaction is there when, except for when things go wrong, right? So, welcome to the first of the resurrected DNN Hangout, hosted by yours truly, Will Strohl from Upendo Ventures, upendoventures.com, and Mr. Ralph Williams. Why don't you give an introduction yourself, sir?
Hey, I'm Ralph Williams of Ralph Williams Consulting, and also of One Hope Ministries, working as UX designer and front-end developer there.
Excellent, excellent. I've known Ralph for a long time now, since about 2008, 2009, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is DNN Summit today? Originally was Day of .NET Nuke, then became Day of DNN, and then it was DNN Summit after that, I think, right? But anyhow...
DNN Con.
Oh, DNN Con, yeah, I forgot one. Forgot one. So anyhow, you helped me with the very first one, so that's how far we go back. We held that first one in 2009. Before that, there was only the commercial conference for DNN. So yeah,
helped with the logo and the website for that one.
Yep. So, Mr. Ralph, for those of you that do not know Ralph, he's been around for a long time now. Sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes out in front. Like he won the module contest last January, something like that. The January before.
January before, I think. It's been a while now.
Not bad for somebody who didn't introduce themselves as a module developer. Yeah. So thank you for being a co-host with me. Yeah, so for everybody watching, we're going to be doing this once a month. It may not be on the same day every month. Schedules are often very hard to come by. And while we do have a format, we're not going to always be stringent upon it. So if you ever have any feedback, please feel free to reach out, let us know. In the show notes, you'll find ways to do that, or you can just leave comments. So the intro. So as far as the show, the goal of the show is to get you to know things that are happening in the DNN ecosystem a little bit better. There's so much information out there, so many things going on. Even if I were to make this a 2-hour show once a month, or I think even 4, there's so many little things in the nooks and crannies that we'll never get through them all. So basically, this is to help us get to know each other, not necessarily a full listing of everything that's happened over the past month, but some of the highlights, some of the things we found interesting, and get to know some of the people in the DNN ecosystem that you may not have gotten to know otherwise. So our next episode we intend to have sometime in November. I'm waiting for our next guest to give us a thumbs up on when, and then we can schedule that. Because of the nature of November and December, we're looking at hopefully the first half of each month for those particular shows. Yeah. So with that, I'm sorry?
Things that got crazy in November and December.
Yeah, remember when the conferences used to be the first week in November? How did we pull that off?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but we did. One of the DNN Worlds was November 5th, I think, if I remember correctly. I think that was 2011.
We even got the 11th or 10th or something like that.
Yeah, and then the one before or after was in October. I learned from that, but we still had 400 and some odd people show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's the year I wore my Superman costume. Yeah. All right. So there's pictures of that out there somewhere. Me with my rock hard abs.
Was that a year? Or the year before that, we had the war with arrows across the whole place.
That was epic. Yeah. So for those of you that were not part of that particular, that was the first DNN World. There was only 2 of them. They were both in Orlando, I think at the same location even. But it was a really fun event right in downtown Orlando, they called it downtown Disney, actually, downtown Disney. So, what's that?
Now known as Disney Springs.
Is it really?
So, yeah.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so that was held there. And in the middle of it, or towards the end of it, a company called Arrow actually brought arrows that were foam that could be launched, and a giant arrow war broke out. It was fun. And just so you know, David, that chat is not so hidden. And so this is a good segue because we are recording the screen. So to that end, right before we're going to do the segue into introducing Mr. David, for those of you who do not know who he is, so right now we're using Join Me to do the broadcast. What we used to use was Google Hangout, which was amazing. It was probably the best tool for this particular type of format to date, but it doesn't exist in its previous state any longer. So if you are watching this and you have a suggestion for some another tool that we can try out, please feel free to let us know. So to that end, Mr. Echo, we have Mr. David Poindexter with us this month because he has a couple of really cool things to show us, and we're going to get along with the interview. So if you're not familiar with David, a number of years ago, he created nvisionative. I was going to call it nvQuickSite. He created nvisionative, so he does a multitude of different things in terms of helping solve customer problems with web-based and mobile app-based solutions. So he's affectionately called by his team the Geek EO. I'm not sure if anybody else would understand that, but yes, he's one of the founders and the CEO of nvisionative, and you're coming out of the North Carolina area. Welcome, Mr. David.
Thanks, guys. It's good to see you. Well, sort of.
Yeah. So
STUL, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, you can't see me? Can you not see me?
We can see.
Oh, I can
he
see
can
me.
see you. He just glad to see you or something like that.
So because there's all these behind the scenes things that happen, maybe one day I'll set up a camera to the side just to capture some of this stuff and put out a video. But before the show started, I had a heck of a time trying to get my microphone and speakers working. But the moment before I started this, both working fine. So I rebooted, come back up, wouldn't work, and then all of a sudden magically it just worked on its own. So we have this inside joke. Whenever anything technical happens, we say shot. So I thought you weren't going to be able to see my face in the recording, but now you can see it. So what I was planning to do when I was getting my water during a reboot, I was going to bring in a bottle of bourbon. But I missed my opportunity. All right. Yeah, so Mr. David, so the things that people might know you for is they've probably seen nvisionative around, especially if people have shown up at an event. We can see that beautiful orange branding on yourself and on the wall behind you. And so while you have been doing things in that regard, there's other things that people probably know you for and may or may not know that you're behind it. So we got things like nvQuickSite, nvQuickTheme, and a couple other things that we're going to be talking about today. You've been churning out these, as well as very recently a bunch of pull requests into DNN platform. And there's been a lot of activity by you specifically, even sometimes behind the scenes with like helping with the running the events, being on the DNN Association board. Back in the day, maybe 5 years ago, the people used to call me Mr. DNN. I think you've taken that mantle. What do you think?
I don't know. That's a pretty tall mantle. I'm not sure that that's even possible with you being almighty in that area. So you may be off his mind in this. So yeah, no. It's really great to be involved and sink your teeth into something that you're passionate about, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we're gonna
something to talk about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're gonna circle. Okay. See.
Never a dull moment.
Oh, that's for sure. So we're going to circle back to that, but I did want to kind of dive into some other things. When I say, we want to get to know some people in our community a little bit better, I really do mean that. So one of the best ways to do that, just for everybody to know, and this is another part of the segment after this, but one of the best ways to do this is to actually attend an event, whether it's a virtual one or an in-person one. Go to DNN Connect, go to DNN Summit. They're both very great events. Attend one of the in-person or virtual user groups, and you'll definitely get to know some of us a lot better. And then, once you share that beer with somebody or that experience, in our community, you tend to end up having a friend for life. You may not always agree with your friend, but you'll always have them. Yeah, so let's dive into some stuff. So I'm curious about some things that some other people might be curious about. David, what would you say your first paying job was?
Oh man, I know that right off the top of my head. I worked at a place called Barnes Barbecue. Yes, I worked at a barbecue, a little hole in the wall barbecue place. My first job in high school, actual, steady job kind of thing instead of a side thing. And yeah, I served barbecue. Smelled like barbecue nonstop. So
But you have a
yeah,
lot of friends, maybe.
yeah. So that job didn't last real long because I had to eventually get a girlfriend. So barbecue and girlfriends don't go too well together when you smell like it all the time.
I don't know. That does not make any sense to me. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
It really was because I ate barbecue for dinner every night, just about.
Yeah.
It was fabulous.
That's good that that's one of your first jobs, because if that's one of your last jobs, that's like 1,000-pound belt, right? Like,
No joke.
Yeah.
yeah. So doing what you do, you do a lot of technical things. You write code, you do UX. In order to get you from there to here, did you go to college, or are you like self-taught? What does that look like?
Yes, so I actually went to college for, believe it or not, electrical engineering. So I went to UNC Charlotte back before it was a school that had football. And engineering was the focal point. So yeah, I went through that. And those were great times. Very technical, of course. And one of the things that it taught me really was how to learn and how to not be afraid of doing anything. I could figure anything out. So it really wasn't so much about the content itself as it was how to figure things out. So it was great. And then really coming out of college, it was a recession for us here in the country, and people were firing instead of hiring. And I guess you were down in Orlando around that time or so, and I had an opportunity to go work for Disney in the robotics down there, and I don't know why. I kick myself a lot these days, but that would have been a great job, but I just didn't want to move, and ended up not going into engineering at all. I actually went into telecommunications with a company called Bell South, which was later, I think merged with AT&T and all that, and did that for about 3 years, and then flipped the switch and went into project management doing the Y2K stuff with IBM, and that was a different world. I was a technical project manager and helped the whole Y2K rollout stuff with all the internal software delivery mechanisms that we had as employees. We had a platform that delivered software through that, and managed that project through that period. And after about 3 years, decided I wanted to be a software developer because I was hanging around all these brilliant people that were really getting into the nitty gritty of code and things like that. And I was like, I really miss that kind of work, and decided to go into software development. So I actually faked my way into a software development job doing classic ASP and eventually .NET. And yeah, I loved that was the very early days of the concept of dynamic content, right? And it blew me away. Somebody embedded a rich text editor into a browser once, and it blew my mind. So that's why I was like, yeah, I could learn this. So I read a book and faked my way into a job. It's funny, I say I faked my way in, but the guy that interviewed, you guys would appreciate this. They have a certain line of questioning, that they'll do in these interviews. And this was kind of a medium-sized company, I guess, or small to medium, about 50 people. And the guy that was heading the development team, we did workflow management software and stuff. So like a kind of a workflow system that sit on top of document repositories. In that case, at that time, it was FileNet. Anyways, long story short, he's asking me a question. He's like, so if I were to put option explicit at the top of an ASP page, what would that mean to you? Oh man, I was so deer in the headlights. I didn't know what he was talking about. And I fumbled my way through an eloquent answer, and I always said, I faked my way in. Nah, he pretty much knew I didn't know what I was talking about.
Well, yeah. So for people who haven't been around or weren't around then, dating ourselves here, but basically that basically turned everything on to you had to declare all your variables, right? Like you couldn't take any shortcuts. It wasn't scripting anymore. It's object oriented a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, you could easily break stuff.
You faked your way into your first development job. I mean, isn't that the story of every developer pretty much? Haven't we all faked ourselves into our first job?
Well, yeah, even
I didn't
so.
know that back then.
Oh yeah, nobody did. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so kind of a parallel with that, I got my start in help desk, right? I was just trying to work my way into it, coming out of the Marine Corps, and I very quickly became the lead of the help desk, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you know what? We need to make the help desk better. We're going to start hiring people out of college, the people with all the Microsoft degrees. And I'm sitting there going, huh? Uh-oh. I just learned this stuff in my bedroom, but I felt really good when the first person they hired, it was their all-star, their rock star. I had to show him, and I am not exaggerating, I had to show him how to use the start menu button. I kid you not. I was like, I'm still good. So that's how you would that's what you would say is your first big break, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ralph, because a lot of people don't talk about that. Even if you are a confident person, most of these things where you're like, oh, I really want to do this, people are afraid that, oh, well, what if people think I can't do this? What if they find out I am faking it? And to that end, one of the things that we've seen David start to do that he's not known for recently is blogging, because I think you may have had some of those fears in the past too with blogging, yeah?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the fears. It's the imposter syndrome or something like that, where you don't want to be discovered that you don't know what you're talking about, so we don't give ourselves enough credit, to that we do know some things and we do have something to offer. And people like you and Clint Patterson and sometimes even Ralph, just you guys inspire greatness. So it's like, okay, I might be able to do that. I might do that. So yeah, that's kind of the way it was through the job. I remember, man, first 4 months of that software development job, I was sweating bullets because I knew I didn't know anything. I didn't want anybody else to find out. So, I tried to kind of lay low and things like that. And I think in the DNN community, I did that for a while too. For years. I've been involved in this community since the beginning. I remember for years, I was really just a silent consumer. I liked watching people contribute and do great things, but I didn't feel like I could bring any value to it.
Well, how wrong you were.
That kind of reminds me a little bit of when I was in the Orlando user group with Will. And here I was, just a front-end developer in the world of a bunch of DNN developers. And he was trying to get me to speak at a conference or different things like that. And I was like, man, I don't know what I'm talking about. All these guys are way smarter than I am. And he was like, man, you got a niche, you do skinning. And so, we might not all know as much as somebody does in one area, but often we have a specialized knowledge in another area that we can kind of help bring to the table and, and share it with everybody else. So, it's interesting what we think we don't know, but some of the stuff we know, people, they want to know that too. So being able to share that in blogs and all these other things are really good.
Isn't that the way of the geek though? Once you figure something out, it's not hard anymore.
Right.
So it's just easy. You know,
Yep.
so why would I tell anybody how to do that? Because it's easy at this point. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I got a couple more questions for you. So, well, okay. So first of all, since we're on the topic of the things you've been doing at the moment, we keep bouncing back and forth into it. What would you say, like right now, with everything that you're doing, is it much output that you have? What would you say is keeping you motivated right now to do that specifically?
Good question. I'm secretly learning more about persona bar development. That's a great prompt. I wish I had one of those. Scratch my back with it right now. No, I'm learning more about persona bar development and things like that. And I secretly want to really kind of help things there. So I think that's a little bit of a motivator. It allows me to learn some new things like React and other platforms that you can use and frameworks that you can use to build that. So it's kind of exciting to me to geek out on some new stuff.
So,
But I think the bottom line answer though to your question is I like it when somebody how do I word it? When it makes an impact on somebody else's business or a project they're working on or even their direction, if I can provide a tool that can help them do what they do better and succeed, that is incredibly rewarding. So that's really the real motivator for me. That's what keeps me going.
excellent. Now, there's all kinds of questions we can ask you, but just you're an entrepreneur in the world, and especially in DNN, of course, right? Like you started your own business, you got some other things going on that are related to your business. Like what inspired you and to get you started doing your business, nvisionative?
I don't know, man. So to kind of finish out the career story, that the corporate career, I stayed about 3 years as a software developer and became a lead of the team and was handling some large projects and stuff. And as I learned more and became more comfortable with development, I think I always had this entrepreneurial drive in me to not rebel, but to do my own thing and to be the, I don't know, lack of a better term, master of my domain, like me be in control of my destiny, and try to build a culture, around me to where others can succeed as well. So that's been a long path, but I think that's really what the drive was, is to just do my own thing without having to deal with red tape as much.
So you wanted to stick it to the man.
Not really. That's the thing. I think you hear that a lot, though, in the entrepreneurial world, where I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it my way. It's not so much the ego driven as it is just the desire. Is kind of like the tinkerer. I want to tinker with things. I want to create things. That's just part of me. And I think that's why I created the business. I wanted to tinker in the business world, even though I had no clue what I was doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's funny. That to me is one of my favorite things of what we do of development is we basically get to tinker with stuff all the time, and that's a fun part of what we do.
So you're saying we don't fix anything, we just tinker around. All right. Two questions. Well, it's one question, two parts, and then we're going to move on to the rest of our show. All right. What is the biggest challenge you've had to overcome with your business, and what's the biggest reward?
You really should have prepped me with those questions.
No way. No way.
No, I think the biggest challenge is a generic one, not a specific one, but just dealing with very sensitive situations, like where expectations have been mismanaged or misunderstood, and you get into a tight spot with a client, and you know it's important to them and it's important to you, and integrity is really at the core of the way I run my business. So I always want to do the right thing, even if it hurts. And sometimes that's easier said than done. And so I think, just generally speaking, that's been the most challenges. That's the stuff that just churns your stomach. You want to figure out what is the medium here. What's the solution that works best for everybody, even though it may hurt everybody a little bit. Biggest accomplishment? Well, I guess building a team, going from a solopreneur to an entrepreneur that has employees and things like that, because it's a shift. I remember when that happened back in 2009ish or somewhere along there. I had to decide whether or not I wanted to be a freelancer or a company. And I called myself a company before then, but it was just me. So there was only so much that one man can do, even though you can have a network of people out there, and other companies that you leverage for various things. If it's just you, it's very different than it is when you have employees. And in my case, even expanding that to a partner, another stakeholder in the business. So that, I'd say that's probably the biggest accomplishment. Even though that has its own set of pain points, it's rewarding to make that shift.
You're also changing people's lives, which resonates with my business. Now, I wanted to call something else before we move on to the next segment. And David and I appear to be coming from present day. But Ralph over there, he's coming to us straight from the 70s. Look at his color. What's going on there?
What is that?
There we go. Is that even better?
Yeah.
Sepia, baby.
Yeah. And about 5-10 minutes ago, y'all couldn't see it, but you'll see it in the recording, and everybody else will have seen it. But you know how we have the little head bubbles here? I was taking my bubble and beating y'all up.
I was really good at that. I have to admit.
All
I didn't
right.
even know you can.
Now you know. All right.
No, I do. Now I'm beating y'all up.
So I got a handful of things that I have here, and if y'all want to chime in on any particular item, feel free. But or bring up your own. But some DNN news. So let's go into some of the things that I found recently that are interesting. So you cannot see it, but I can. Let me see if I'm gonna play my screen here. So you guys can see this at the moment. Boom. Or you see it okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Look how small our bubbles are now, though. All right. Yeah. So first thing, events. So we got some stuff going on. The first thing I wanted to mention, and I don't have a link up for it right now, is as of fresh off the presses, Andrew. How do you say his last name? Huffling. Heffling. I always get things like that wrong. I can get first names pretty well. Andrew Heffling, he's entertaining starting user group. It may not be directly DNN related, but Andrew Heffling, he's pretty well known in the community at this point. He's brand new to it, but he's already done a ton of work in heading up different areas of updating a platform and just help pitching in and making things better. But he's in the Rochester, New York area, and we actually there's a DNN ecosystem vendor, at least one, in that area. There's ITX, and I think there's another one. Actually, I think there's 2 or 3 there. There's like Mad Development, some other folks. So that's not a bad place to have one. So if you're watching this, you're in the Rochester area, keep your eye out for that. There'll probably be some announcements coming your way. I don't have anything in the next Southern Fried DNN. David, what's the next Southern Fried? Since you're a part of that as well.
It hasn't been officially announced yet, but I do believe that our friend Clint Patterson will be presenting on the new Blazor stuff. And I think there's going to be a kind of a double header segment there, and I can't remember off the top of my head who the other presenter is going to be, but looking forward to hearing some of that, because nice announcements recently from Microsoft related to Blazor.
So for those that don't know, is Blazor like a blonde laser, or is it something else more technical?
It's a bit more technical, but essentially it's been an experimental project to date that has a lot of people excited because you can run C# code in the context of the browser client side. Now, they've announced that they're going to roll the server-side components into .NET Core for the next release. So, and I would expect at some point we'll see some movement on the client side stuff. But right now, it's just not ready for prime.
Not ready for prime. So I have to get the big bubbles for this part. Come on, stop it. Here we go. Here it comes. Wait for it. It'll be worth it, I swear. Here we go. We need some DNN with some freaking blazers on its head, right? That's what we All right. So in terms of other events, we got building complex systems with DNN Sharp modules. So that's going to be, ooh, my mouse is selecting everything. There we go. That's going to be the TUDUG, or the Toronto Area DNN User Group meeting, or a virtual user group. So that's going to be hosted by our friend Adderson, or our hero, or DNN hero as he is called. And so Bogdan Litescu? Sorry, Bogdan, if I got your name wrong, and I know I did. But he's the founder of... Bogdan's pretty easy. But he's the founder of DNN Sharp, so he's going to be showing. Yeah, so feel free to get that. And everything we mentioned is going to be in the show notes. So we also have... that's not it. We also have a DNN Summit coming. So that's going to be coming in... What, it's the end of January, I think, right?
That would be the end of February.
End of February, okay. Yeah, so I believe registration just opened for that, and as well as the links and stuff for hotels and whatnot, right?
That is correct.
So that'd be dnn-summit.org. Feel free, go there, join us. What?
No hyphen.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm messing it up with DNN Connect. dnnsummit.org. Yeah, feel free to sign up for that, join us. You know, we'll see you on the slopes. And don't be afraid of it. Like I didn't go to the first one because like, ew, snow. And then I went to the second one and I'm like, I love snow now. All right.
We have pictures and video to prove that.
Oh yeah, that's some good stuff.
He's playing in the snow for the first time.
It's cold. This is amazing.
You gotta do that again. That's awesome. Oh man, that's funny. There it is.
I don't know if I'm doing it right.
You're doing it right. That's it. Now, when you get up, you got to be kind of careful. You know, when you get up, when you get up, you have to not mess up. There you go. There you go. Oh, look at that snow angel. Oh no! There's the snow angel, folks. So, how was your experience?
Tiring. That was cool.
Blast.
My first snowball and everything. Yeah, so by the time you see this you'll maybe have 1 or 2 days left, but we got the 2018 DNN Website Awards. So make sure you submit your website for this, and there will be some judging and some awards. And so make sure you submit your favorite DNN site that you've done to the awards so it can be judged. All right, what else we got here? We got a bunch of things turning. So some interesting blogs I saw that I wanted to put out there. So this one's actually by Mr. David Poindexter himself. He has a simple 10-step testing blog for release candidates. So one of the things about DNN now is that it has returned to being open source instead of just being free source, which is really, really awesome for the community. We're all very excited about that. Those of you that are kind of more plugged in, you know that there's a lot more activity going on, a lot more people contributing, pitching in, writing code and whatnot. And so one of the areas that we always need, if you're not technical, you can still help us. One of the things you can do, you can read this blog here by Mr. David, and you can help us test various releases. So it's quite simple. Goes through some various steps that anybody can do, and you can give us a help out. So basically, just click on stuff. If it doesn't work, tell somebody. If you see something, say something.
Perfect.
Let's see here. Redirects in DNN. This is by, I know the first name is Tiho, right? The last name, it looks like it's easy, but I bet you it's not easy for me to say. So it's Tiho DeWard, but I'm pretty sure I got his name wrong. So, there's his name there. So Tiho, he's been blogging a lot recently. He's, again, somebody who hasn't been known for blogging, but he has a really great blog about redirects in DNN. If you haven't seen it, though, the one thing that I think it's missing that would be nice is that, have you all read this?
I haven't. No.
You haven't? Oh, okay, so David has. So it has some great, notes about how somebody technical can do redirects, but it actually completely bypasses the things that are built into DNN to do some of the same things. And I kind of wish that was in there as well.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can ping him.
Well, yeah.
Make it
Well, one of the things that I like to tell people is just because somebody blogged about it once or made a video about it once doesn't mean that you can't as well. So, if somebody else wants to be like, hey, well, I know the other ways, feel free. There's no such thing as too much content on any particular subject in DNN.
Good point.
Let's see here. It's live storefront beta. So this is the last so far that just occurred, and I don't know why none of these pages have already loaded. I clicked on all these earlier. Things are not moving.
Too many tabs.
No, you haven't seen Eric VB's browser. If you've ever sat behind, with Eric VB, so he's another guy in the community, he has a plugin in his browser just to manage tabs. That's how many he keeps open. Yeah, so the last SoFried, or Southern Fried DNN user group, so it's a virtual user group, but I think you guys meet in person as well, right? It's both?
We do, but the last one was online only. It was kind of an oddball for us, but yeah.
Okay.
Normally we do meet in person.
Yeah, so it was a nice meeting. I'm sorry I couldn't attend it. It would have been great because I happen to like e-commerce a little bit. But Live Storefront was announced and demoed by Mr. Mandeep of mandeeps.com. So there's another blog for you that's going to be very interesting. So ecosystem is continuing to grow. New modules and extensions continue to go out there. There's also the last MVP meeting. So that's one of the things that where we talk about things DNN. This one is a little bit different format though. It's kind of more like a open forum. So it was a very interesting meeting. We had a lot of fun with that one. So feel free to watch that video.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
It was had a great feel to it.
Let's see here. So the good thing is we're recording this ahead of time, and then I get to edit it afterwards. I can pull out some of this dead time. Except for the times where I'm just talking about it. All right. So discover all sorts of open source DNN goodness. We're going to come back to this one because this is part of the reason why David is here today. So we're going to talk about nvQuickPulse in just a few minutes. DNN 922 is the most current release of DNN. So there's a blog post here that was written by Mitchell Sellers. And so it talks about the various updates that are in DNN 922. And one of the things I've been enjoying about the 9.2x releases is the updates to the persona bar. While the persona bar itself from version 9 through 9.1.1 were the persona bar worked fine. There was a lot of missing features. There was some very annoying usability issues. And don't get me wrong, whatever control panel we ever have in DNN is never going to be 100% perfect. There's always going to be people who are like, I don't like this. But in the version 9.2 releases, there's been some really nice updates to make that persona bar a lot better to use. And so that's one of the things I wanted to point out about 9.2.2. Is there anything else you guys wanted to point out?
I would say definitely Be on the lookout for 9.3 and 9.4 because 9.4 there's going to be quite a bit of focus. That is the main focus is persona bar. So I think we may see the resurgence of some features that were not ever put into the persona bar that used to be in the UI for DNN via modules.
Absolutely. And I definitely want to give just a moment to call out all the wonderful people that took the time to add their code or whatever else they did to help with this release. And I'm pretty sure David Poindexter's in that list. Yep. You're near the bottom, but I mean, you made it. You made it.
I'm driving for a noteworthy bullet point one of these days.
And then we got 930 coming. So the milestone is in GitHub, so you can look at this at any given point in time to see what's going to go in it, see how many issues are still open. There's already 59 that are closed, but 930, it's 80% complete in terms of development, and that's going to be closing down on my birthday. That was really nice of you guys. That was really, really cool. Look at that. You guys are so nice. We're going to get that little bad boy out of the way. Go ahead.
Hey, Will,
Yes.
Let me make a note of one more thing that people can be on the lookout for here on GitHub.
Sure.
Is you'll start seeing a prefix on some of these issues. If you get to the issue tab, you'll see a few of them are there already. But they will be prefixed with RFC. And for those that don't know what that is, that's going to be request for comments. So this is where we're able to discuss things that we believe should be there, but it really just needs some dialogue and some buy-in before somebody puts forth the effort to, put together a real pull request. So you'll start seeing that happen more and more in there, and that'll be really nice for those that even aren't coders. Don't be afraid to jump into the conversation, because a lot of times the conversation is not, just code talk.
Yeah. Anybody can have an opinion. And people that don't code, your opinion is actually a lot more relevant and important than the people who can code. Because at the end of the day, you have to click on it. Right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I thought RFC meant request fried chicken. I'm really upset about that.
But it does down here.
All right. So the next thing in terms of DNN news that I wanted to bring up, new extensions. So this is more of a conversation piece because it's really difficult right now to figure out what came out recently, right? There's no way to know that. So we used to have the Forge, which, those of you who I talk to on a personal offline basis, that's one of my things that is really, I have it on my plate. I want to resurrect the Forge because it did everything that we needed it to do, except for it had some bugs, and then DNN Corp a long time ago just basically removed it. But we do have an area where we can see a community open source extensions that have been released. So we do have it doesn't really have a name, it's just community open source extensions on dnnconnect.org. Short and sweet. But there's also one of the things I wanted, I generally in the past with the Hangout is pointed out some open source and commercial extensions. It would never be an exhaustive list, just some of the things that just caught my eye. But one of the things I noted when I was looking at the DNN store is that whenever it loads, this is something that is really, it's always been a pain point for me. So these first two extensions, fine, they're $70. That's not horrible. But then look at this. We got some extensions for $16, $15, $12, and then there's even one over here somewhere. It's $1. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in this list. But I understand that people want to be competitive and stuff, but as a business owner myself who rolls out solutions for vendors and for actual clients, some of these clients are quite large. I would never even look at an extension that's cost $15. If it costs less than $100, I might not look at it at all, right? And I don't know how somebody can make money off of a $15 extension. It's just kind of crazy. So basically what I'm saying is, and I've been saying this for years, I said this at actually one of my presentations at Southern Fried, charge more for extensions. Make some money, make a business out of it, and you know, let's help the ecosystem grow. You're not going to grow with a $1 extension. Yeah, so that's my soapbox. You guys have any input on any new extensions that have been released, or the 2 directories that we have so far, or at the moment?
Just want to say amen to that comment.
Yeah, there's no way I can trust that the extension has even been tested if I'm only going to pay $20 for it, right? Much less
get support.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know I'm not getting support, so I might as well just go get an open source one. At least I can fix it.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Agreed.
Soapbox stepped off. All right. So I also wanted to every now and then bring out some interesting forum posts I've seen. So this was pretty cool. I don't know if you've seen this, but we used to have the concept of core modules in the ecosystem, right? And so what we meant by core modules is when you install DNN, there's a bunch of modules that came with it, but they weren't necessarily all installed by default. But you could just click a button and install them, right? So imagine that you install DNN and you wanted it to be a blog. You go to the extensions area, you just click the blog install button, and all of a sudden you have a blog module installed. So those core modules, as they were called, were maintained by the community, and we always, as leaders in the community, those of us who maintained them, we always tried to make sure that they had some of the best practices, integrating some of the newer things, things like that, right? And there was probably, I think, 20 of them total, and so trying to cover the most common use cases. One of them that fell off the wayside over the years, and not for any particular reason, it's just sometimes things stop getting worked on. But one of them was DNN Store, and DNN Store is back. And so that's what this forum post is about. So it has a new home. Gilles, I don't know how to say your last name without making you upset. He's put it on GitHub, so if you want to use it, test it, help him and Daniel. They've been working on this, so feel free to do some testing and help make that module a better one. So feel free. So again, an e-commerce theme. That was unintentional. I just noticed that.
Sure.
Yeah.
We see where your preferences lie.
Speaking of, one of the things in terms of preferences, so we have, there's an interesting forum post, or actually, in looking at the forum posts, there's some themes that I saw, right? And so one of them I saw is not just forums, but also the question and answers area, the discussions. No, what do they call it? No. What's that area called?
Answers.
Answers. Yeah, because you ask answers. Yeah. So anyhow, some of the themes I saw for recent posts over the past month was spa development, various things about what was and is not working in terms of using spa, just the pattern, and using spa with Angular and whatnot. I also saw navigation between module views, so it's interesting that that's still a question that those of us who've been around for a while. Of course, we're going to think that's kind of an easy or beginner thing, but if somebody's coming into this ecosystem for the first time, that's not something that they're familiar with. How do you go from view to view? So it was interesting to see that. And then also missing features in DNN 9X, specifically about the persona bar. And so it's really interesting I wanted to just see, I did a search in DNN platform repo on GitHub, and there's a total of 37 persona bar issues since the issues got moved over here, and that's a lot. And that's not a lot as it's a bad thing. It's a lot and a good thing, because you can see that a lot of these have activity. Some of these, you can see 6 of 6 subtasks were done, 1 of 1 is done, and some of these have milestones attached to them. So if you do not see something that used to be in the control panel that you really need, and this is one of the things I kept seeing, feel free to create an issue, and these things are getting worked on. So
yeah, you probably want to point them to the actual repo to the persona bar, though. That would be the DNN.admin experience, and that's where you'll see all the persona bar specific issues posted, whereas those that are platform are the ones that are kind of both of them.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that's kind of still confusing to me. I know the end goal is to put the persona bar into the platform all in one repo. You know, this got moved into, so here it is right here at the top. This got moved into a repo, but it used to, where you see it today, and that's a great thing because it was not fully accessible before, right? So so this is great where it is. But didn't somebody, I know somebody was promising it, but I don't know if it ever got created. There was at some point, somebody said they were going to create video or documentation on how to contribute to this specific repo.
Yes, Daniel Valadas has an entire series of videos on how to contribute both to DNN platform and the admin experience on that. So they're on YouTube under the DNN software or DNN Corp account channels out there, and there's a playlist for that. I can try to get you that link for the show notes.
Awesome. There we go. Yeah, so the DNN admin experience, aka Persona Bar. All right, so this has its another 37 issues. Look at that. Same number. Actually, it's more than that if you count the closed.
Now just having 2 repos is great. Hopefully we can get it to 1 here pretty soon, but it used to be way worse than this.
Yeah. So for anybody that thinks like, oh my God, 2 repos, no, this is forward progress. We're getting there. We'll be there soon. And when I say we, like it's not me, it's not the people on the call. We means all of us. This is an open source community, so if you want to help, we can get you there. We'll help, we'll get you to the right people. Oh, speaking of videos, oops. I've also been creating my own videos. So I create at least 1 a week, it seems, sometimes more. But a lot of the beginner stuff that you get constant questions about, been creating some of those videos. So feel free if you have end users that are like, oh my God, I don't know how to do that. Like I can't stand answering the recycle bin question I get once a week from Johnny in marketing or whatever. Feel free to just send him a video. All right. Now, what the other thing is site of the month. David, this is a good segue to you because there's 2 things you're here for. One's a demo. The other is the site of the month for this month is one that you were going to show. So I'm going to make you presenter. Or I'm going to allow you to be presenter.
That's a surprise to me. I guess I can put that into the awards list, huh?
No, the restaurant, wasn't that?
Yeah, but I mean, you just said it was the site of the month, so that's an award.
Nice.
It's something. Yeah. So this segment is I just want to highlight like a nicely done DNN website at least once a month. And so when we were putting together this first hangout, David happened to mention this one. And I was like, yes, let's do this one, especially because it makes me hungry. So David has the honors of presenting the first one. So feel free, sir.
Cool. Yes, I mean, this site here's a fairly basic website that we did for one of our clients. It's they own a restaurant called the Prickly Pear, and it's a nice Mexican, kind of high-end Mexican cuisine. And one of the cool things that we had always been wanting to do in a DNN site is to do restaurant sites very well. And they have their own set of unique challenges, the biggest of which are menus. It's great to make them look good, on the website, which any decent web designer and developer can do. But we wanted it to be a great tool for the restaurateur to be able to add and remove menu items just on the whim, because restaurants like these have a chef, right? And they are always changing their menu, adding specials and things like that, right? So we wanted to find a great way, and I have no idea who is sending me a text, but it's coming through on my Mac. All right. But we did this menu area, and I'll kind of highlight this, but it allows us to show what you would expect for a menu here. And I'll move rather slow because I know this scrolling doesn't work great through the screen sharing. But this is kind of what you would expect with a menu, right? A list of menu items and multiple columns and so forth. But what you don't see here is that all of this is done with structured content. So when I log in as an administrator to the site or a content editor to the site, as the restaurant owner would, or whoever he seems fit to do that, they can go in and add and remove and update any items, in a structured way, in a way that's not going to break the look and feel of the page. As you see, we've got some, design kind of heavy styling here where you don't really want them mucking around with it too much, right? So it allows them to be able to do this, and we've got multiple categories and so forth on this. So that's one area. The other area of noteworthiness is events, and they have plenty of those that are recurring, and then some special ones that come in. So we show that in a nice way to where it's a good experience for the end user. If they really want to see what's going on about this, half off select bottles of wine, they click on that and they can see a nice detail of that particular event. This one doesn't have a whole lot of detail associated with it, but a nice image and so forth. And this is handled in a structured way as well. And then you've got basic content pages here. And that's about it. If we wanted to go into a mobile experience, it does a great job there too. So I didn't know, Will, if you wanted me to dive into any of the kind of structured content approach stuff, or at least to see that or not.
Oh, you can just,
but I'm happy to do that if you'd like.
You can just do that at a high level. We don't need to go too far. Maybe mention some of the modules you've used and maybe why, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So you see the responsiveness of this is quite nice through here, where you've got nice touch kind of experience here going through it. Everything scales very nicely. But when we go back out to desktop, the menu area was done using the structured content solution by Too Sick, which is called Too Sexy. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And but it does a really nice job with this type of thing, and we can toggle back and forth between the menus. But I guess I could log in as an admin here and see just kind of quickly how that does. And I won't go into the other areas other than just to mention what they're built with. I'll close the...
I know what I'm having for dinner tonight.
I'm thinking about the same. I may actually go here at this place when we get done.
I'll see you there.
All right. They might be closed by the time you're able to get here.
Might be back open by the time he gets there.
Yeah.
That is true. Okay, so when we go over into the menus area, notice I did not have to go into edit mode or anything like that. So when a content editor logs in, they don't even see all the regular persona bar stuff that's over here. They'll see the bar, but they won't see any of the other stuff. So we have permissions locked down to where they're only seeing what they need to see. So if they need to come in and update this particular menu item, they can come in, edit this one, and it'll show the overlay here, the modal that pops up for that particular area. And you'll notice that we've got it structured as there's a name of the item, a price of the item, a description of the item, which is rich text that we can come in here. We've got a field here for some additional type information, and you'll notice it's got a category. So we've got these broken out into multiple categories here, depending on where it needs to go in the menu. In this case, it was an appetizer, so we'll leave it there. And then which menu. We've got 3 different menus here. So we got one for lunch and drink menu and a dinner menu. And in this case, this was in the dinner. So they would come in, update their information, and click save, and that's all there is to it. If they needed to add a new one, it would be a similar type experience there. They can move things around, change the order of these easily through there. So it's a great experience. The client loves it. We love it because we don't have to deal with updating that type of content for them on a regular basis.
So this is a modern Mexican cuisine. So I have a very important question for you. Knowing what I know about you, okay, so for those of you who don't know, like he came and stayed out for a vacation for like a week out here, stayed with me, and one of the things I found out about David is he makes a mean margarita. So where does their margarita stack up against yours?
Oh gosh, hopefully they won't see this video. I'm sorry, it's hard to beat my margaritas.
Awesome.
And just to highlight the other areas, the events area is done with Easy DNN News, which we love the flexibility of it. And no solution is perfect, but we do like the ability to change that, the look and feel very easily, and handle that in a nice structured way there as well. But there's every other content area really done with the too sexy structured content type stuff, so the client can come in and change these as well.
Nice.
The contact form is built using Mandeep's live forms. You'll notice it's styled really nicely. We like the flexibility of that solution as well.
So curious. So knowing what I know about like the capabilities of the solutions that you've said so far, you could have done the contact form in too sexy, but you did not. Was there a business decision behind that?
We just love how quick we can set up live forms. The hard part of live forms for us is styling, just because of the way it does that.
Yeah, agreed.
There's a lot of stuff that's there that we wish it was just not there. So you have to kind of go in and just have a hack fest with it.
Yeah. So so I use live forms. I'm a fan. The one thing that like the one big like wish list item for me is I wish it was templatable, right? Like I wish I didn't have to have a complete copy of the CSS and be restricted to the formatting of the HTML that's being output. That's the only like if that was changed, like that's like the number one thing. I like everything else is workable. But I not to say I don't use it. I use it plenty.
That's pretty much my number one thing on any module is templatable.
Yeah.
That's a huge value.
Yeah. There's another extension I used to use for forms. I shall not name them. But they were templatable, which was great, but they added so much extra stuff to the page payload that wasn't even necessary. Like everything that was necessary for the administration experience was still getting loaded even if you weren't logged in. Like in the background, like all this JavaScript, the CSS, and it wasn't even being loaded the correct way. Like it was just part of the markup. It's like, and just deleting that module, like I think we saved like 3 second load times. 3 seconds from load times. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and since you mentioned load time, I will say people may be interested to know that we built this theme using nvQuickTheme. So it's incredibly fast and performant.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
I've heard of that. I'm actually using that on a site I'm building right now.
Well, look at you being all fancy.
Does that mean you're building a site in DNN, Ralph?
I am. My second one is here.
Yeah. So I happen to know that, so I was going to ask it if you didn't mention it. But now that Ralph is using nvQuickTheme, like I haven't personally had the pleasure of being able to actually use it yet myself. So Ralph, like, what's your very candid opinion of nvQuickTheme?
It is horrible. No, wait, no. No, actually, I really like the fact that it's basically npm, or I guess using yarn or whatever, but it's got a lot of the preprocessors for CSS and JavaScript and handling a lot of that packaging for you already, and so that allows me to do my CSS with Sass, and it really just seems to be really well put together from that aspect of it. I'm kind of replacing a lot of, since the design that I'm working on is a custom design, I'm replacing a lot of the theme part itself, but all of the I guess the piping behind it all, if you will, is really a big help. And so I didn't have to set any of that stuff up whenever I got going on it. So that's the part I like. That's why I'm using it. So it's my candid review.
Nice. So David, you're showing us some performance metrics.
Well, basically what I was showing you here is the payload. I mean, often when you go to a DNN website, if you were to go to the network tab in your dev tools here, you would see a ton of files here. So one of the things we pride ourselves on with the nvQuick team is that we keep that payload as light as possible, leveraging DNN features that are built in to load things properly. Also optimizing things, for using the client dependency framework where we know that it works well and not where we know it doesn't work well. So that helps a lot.
Yeah. So like one of the things I've run into over the years is, every platform can have its complaints of performance, right? And one of the things with DNN, like when I help a client with performance, like one of the first things I actually look at is the theme, and I can usually shave off a handful of seconds just by changing like a few things in the theme. So it's really nice to see something where people can start with some best practices already kind of implemented, and they don't have to learn them and figure it out or give somebody a bad taste of DNN that wasn't necessary, and then figure it out later on accident. Yeah, so this is really nice. Awesome. So great website. Thank you, sir. But the real reason you're here, the other real reason you're here is a tool called nvQuickPulse. So why don't you give us like a 5 or 10 minute rundown on that?
Sure thing. Let me pull up my phone. Let me know if you guys can see this okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but that app right there is for adults only. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind.
We have the other apps that are here, but we've got nvQuickPulse, and I'll go ahead and start it up. And what this is, it was really, I mean, honestly, I decided to do this because I wanted to learn the GitHub API. I mean, that's really kind of what it was. It also kind of come out of a conversation among the core modules team now, where there was some talk about trying to get some stats, visible in some of the community projects, and really, help people know what's popular, what's not popular, what needs work, as far as like seeing issues that are out there and all that. So at first, you'll see kind of a run through of some messaging that I built in here just to build up the community a bit, and I'll try my best to keep notifications from coming in here. But don't judge if you see some things happen. So we'll get into the app here, and what you have here is a ability to come in and discover some new things within the DNN community. So what just happened there when we came to this page is we're hitting the GitHub API. We're pulling back. Yep, and it was real strong. Very nice, sir.
That was great.
I should have known something like that.
Hey, that's karma for you and Clint doing that stuff to me during other meetings.
Hey, that wasn't on your screen. Oh, yeah, it was. So you'll see here that there are 364 repositories in GitHub that are pulled back. So you may say, wow, I had no idea there was that much out there specifically in the DNN community. Some of this is big, like big repositories like DNN platform itself, or one of the more popular, structured content solutions like Too Sexy. But there are a ton of repos in here. And what you see with each one of these is these are ordered in popularity of those repos.
Wait, so what's Chris Hammond doing there?
Well, he's been around a long time, so there you go. That gets you a few numbers up there.
I kid. We love Chris.
So you'll see that the stargazers are shown right away. But if we wanted to really dive into one and see what's really going on, so let's take a look at. Let's go down and find one of Will Strohl's. He's probably up here in the list. There we go. There's DNN extensions.
Look how sexy I used to be. Remember when I had hair?
And see what's happening in the heartbeat of the DNN Extensions project. So we come in here and we're able to see that there are 31 stargazers. There are 14 people that have forked this repository and created a copy for themselves. The language that's predominant in there is JavaScript, and he's got 59 open issues. So, hey, he's probably looking for some help if you're looking for an area to get in there and really solve some of these issues. His default branch is the master branch, and he's got one open pull request right now that he really needs to go out there and review and take a look at and see if he can merge it in. Who knows exactly what's going on with that PR, but that's what PRs are.
I'm guessing that might be something from you then. I don't know.
Probably not, but if it is, it was a long time ago. We can also see on this page some of the releases that he has put out there. Now, his project is probably one of the more complicated as far as, I mean, it's simple, but it's complicated in the sense that he has multiple extensions within this repository, right? So we see a release here of his code camp module, which, you know, sorry, Ralph, but man, it should have won the competition. You know?
That's what I'm saying. All I got out of it was a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah, that's all you got.
I see this.
It's a really good model too, by the way.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I expand out his CodeCamp module, and we can see here that his install package has 67 downloads. So, hey, good job there.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of pulse on that. How's his Discus module doing? Okay, it's got some activity. He's got 45 downloads there of the install package. So yeah, every asset that is in a release gets listed here with some stats. You can't even get this information from going to github.com.
Which is silly.
So it is silly.
Yeah.
And once you see the API, you'll understand why you don't have that information there. Some bonehead thought it wasn't a good idea to put it into that. But so, you know, this is great for not only discovering new projects, but also monitoring your own. And if I wanted to really go out to the GitHub project, I can come in the top right corner here, and I can actually just go straight to his repo and see really what's going there if I wanted to dig into some code. Now, this is from a mobile experience, so not sure how valuable that is, but I occasionally find myself going out there and looking at some things on the mobile phone there. So let's look at another area here. Let's do some searching. So let's say we're interested in, I don't know, theme. Let's see what repos have theme there. It's going to pull back all of the, oops, I probably should have went to the top. Oh my goodness, look who's up at the top up there. nvQuick theme, and we've got some, because the Yo DNN, which is generator-DNN from Matt Rutledge, has an ability to scaffold out a theme. It comes up in this category. And let's say we're looking for, let's say, commerce.
Yeah, it was actually it's a pretty good search too.
And looky there, we have got, oops, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. I hit another button accidentally. Let's do that again. All right, so I started searching on the word commerce. Look who comes up at the top there. It's Hotcakes Commerce.
As number one.
There you go.
I heard searching for videos was a good search as well, David. I'm not sure.
No. Did you hear anything? I didn't hear anything.
Well, look there. Oh. Ralph actually
I was
has
not
an
expecting that at all.
up there. Did you know that?
I'm not expecting that whatsoever.
That's not Ralph. That's some younger kid. That's like Ralph 20 years younger.
That's Mr. Timberlake. Yeah, so it's great. We can see what's going on with Ralph's project. I mean, look, he has no open PRs. Will?
All right. Height.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Ralph would like some help too. He's got 8 open issues there. So.
Oh, he has a lot more than that.
Oh, he named his release "Adding Questions and Answers to Videos." Perhaps we need to have a separate training session on how to use GitHub.
Oh,
Let's see who's the top contributors, though. Oh, look at there. Oh,
Yeah.
who's missing from that list?
Yeah.
David.
You know, pictures, people. That's not bad, right? All right, look there. We got that person. You got a little bit of fanboy going on there.
You know, it's kind of interesting how Clint always tries to inject himself into everything DNN. You see that?
I noticed that.
It's usually just a text edit.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. We appreciate all contributions.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Let's see how DNN 9.2.2 is going. All right. It's had 1,981 downloads of the install package so far.
Nice. Yeah, so like a little side note, this download information, one of the things that's interesting about it is, DNN, the last repository it was, or the last, whatever you want to call it, source code location it was at, was Codeplex. And the reason, one of the primary reasons it stayed there for so long was the download metric, right? Because GitHub didn't have that, and for the longest time that was an important metric until at some point somebody decided it wasn't. Which, to be honest, at the end of the day, it's not important how many times it's downloaded. It was really important how many times it's used, right?
That's true.
So that's a whole nother thing. But just a little side note there.
So what I'll mention here is that this project is actually fully open source itself, and it is on GitHub. So the idea here is that this was a starting point. Let's hear what kind of statistics matter. What would you like to see in this app? Is it helpful to you? Is it not helpful to you? Is a mobile experience not good for this? But if you have an idea for some things, notice I have 3 open issues out here. Look at there. Will Strohl has posted 3 issues out here. So yeah, I mean, this is great. Notice the help wanted tag on this. So definitely would love. I mean, maybe this app was developed in Ionic using their framework. So it may or may not be of comfort zone to the normal DNN developer, but if you know Angular and some basic HTML, stuff like that, you can definitely contribute. If not, at least point out some of the ways in which it can be improved, and we'll rally around and get it done.
Yeah, so anybody who wants to do that, feel free to contribute here or in the show notes, and we'll help you, with that. But there's 2 things here. So with the latest, like with the issues that are there, so one of the things that is interesting is we just went full circle on something else earlier. That first issue said latest releases view, which is one of the gripes I had earlier in the show. Like, I don't know what was most recently released. I have no idea. No clue, right? And then there was another thing I wanted to mention behind that. Oh, no, the other thing was a question. So besides looking for feedback and asking people what they want and how this can further improve their lives and whatnot, do you have some sort of roadmap? Do you have an idea of where you want to take this, or are you leaving this in the hands of the community?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I used it, like I said, as a way to learn the GitHub repo, and I do have some ideas on it, but I really, for me personally, to invest much more into this, I need to know that it's of value. I quite honestly have not received a lot of feedback about this. I know that people are downloading it, so I can presume some things, but I don't want to presume too much, so we just have to invest in the things that are bringing value, and things that aren't, move on. So I would love to enhance this and make it better. Right now it is using the GitHub API without authentication. What that means is if you were to hit So what you're trying to say is push notifications in the app would be really helpful?
Actually, there was one thing that I think we talked about that offline. I don't have it. I didn't create an issue for it though. But like one of the things that would be interesting for me is there's so many ways that people could get the information about specific releases, right? And you know, like if we just talk about DNN itself by itself, like it's kind of interesting how even though there's a newsletter, there's all these different shows and blogs and you know videos and all these different things that go out there every time there's a release. And GitHub itself tells people, right? Like there's all these ways for people to get information. Somehow people still don't know, a lot of people still don't know when a DNN release is pushed, which is interesting, right? So push notifications in here would be interesting, you know, DNN by default as a setting, but then people could say, you know what, I really like hotcakes, or I really like the video thing by Ralph or whatever. Like maybe I follow that one and I get a push notification when that happens.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I guess the question then becomes like kind of who manages that, right? So.
Oh yeah, that's what we did talk about this, because yeah, you have to like figure out like there's some technical challenges behind doing that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I failed to mention this is not only available on GitHub, but it's available on the App Store of your choice. I've got Google Play open here, but it is also available on the Apple App Store as well. So feel free to go out and get it on your device and let us know.
And Ralph, I'm very sorry, but they don't have it available for your BlackBerry.
Oh, shame.
And I know I'll at least get 2 hate mails for Windows devices, but no, it's not available on Windows either. It could. But
I miss my Windows Phone. It used to be on my desk still, just because I'm still mourning it.
Awesome. David, I gotta say I appreciate the app because I now actually can see my downloads, and so that was something I've been interested in. So that's a cool feature, having that in there.
That's good to know. I use it for the same thing because I'm like that.
Yeah.
That's good. It's helpful.
So this has all been great. Thank you for joining us, David, for being our first guest. Really appreciate it. So why don't you, actually, first stop sharing the screen so we can just see you. Keep it paused.
Now the bubbles are too big and I can't like bounce them around.
Yeah, I'm going to ignore that part. All right, so now that we can see you, why don't you look at everybody in the world and tell them what you're up to, what's going on next, what's coming up for nvisionative for you, what would you like to promote?
I would say that please come out to DNN Summit. I've got 3 presentations we'll be doing out there. One is really community focused and help people to find and discover things in the community, of which nvQuickPulse will be one of the many tools that we'll use to do that. Doing a presentation on persona bar extension development using not just React, but also Angular and Vue.js and pure HTML. So come and check that one out. And I think I'm doing another one. Right now, I can't remember which one that is, but yeah, definitely come out to the DNN Summit. I think, Will, you're presenting out there as well, so it's good to see you come back into the presenter fold.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I think I'm presenting, and then I'm definitely doing the training, so yeah, we got that going for us. Yeah?
I remember the other one. Yes, it was nvQuickComponents is going to be kind of highlighted. So we're going to talk about web components in general, not really nvQuickComponents so much, but just the onset of web components and what that means to us as web developers. So excited about that. And by the way, Firefox now supports natively web components. We've been waiting for that for quite some time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you clearly have expertise in a lot of areas between you and the rest of the people on your team. You know, you're doing web components, you're doing mobile apps, you're doing websites, you're all over the place here. You're integrating with different systems. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, they're very interested in working with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can come to nvisionative.com. That's in the word vision, ATIVE.com, or they can email us at info@nvisionative.com. Of course, I can be found on Twitter at David Poindexter. And pretty much anywhere in the DNN space, just post a comment. Most likely I'll see it.
Yeah, so he has his own bat signal. Okay, so I'm gonna end y'all with this. Like every time I'm hearing about like all these components and things, like like name the JS framework. One of the things that I heard earlier, like it's a dream of mine for people to create a few different frameworks that work together. So there's Yarn, but I want to see Cat, Tuna, and Litterbox as components that go work with Yarn in some way, shape, or form.
That's great.
Oh, we can't hear you, David.
Oh, have to unmute in order to be heard, I guess. See, that's what web components is. It works with anything. It's not a framework.
Yeah, but it's not called Litterbox or Cat or Tuna. Uh-oh.